Well, hey again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder on Saturday, October 14th, 2023. Do you know that there's a solar eclipse today? Apparently, about noon, it's going to be over Corpus Christi, Texas. Corpus Christi is Body of Christ. And it's a style of a eclipse that will have a halo around the outside edge. Quite interesting. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about civilian aids to the Secretary of the Army. Defend our republic. As it turns out, there's these folks that, they hold a particular office, and we're going to do a little investigation on them and see if maybe they can help us get out of this unconstitutional democracy and back to a Republican form of government. And I am Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Redlewski, U.S. Army, a.k.a. also known as Rob Ryder. Email address is courtofrecord@aol.com. And my YouTube channel is Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER. So who are these folks? Called the civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army. Also known as CASA, C-A-S-A. Let's take a look-see. So where do I want to start? Well, let's start with this. Right? There was just recently a proclamation recognizing the 100th anniversary of the civilian aids to the Secretary of the Army. And whereas 1916 civilian aid program originated during the World War I era as part of the Military Training Camps Association, and MTCA supported national defense through military training of citizens who could be called to active duty in the event of a war. Whereas on November 1922, Secretary of War John W. Weeks officially recognized the MTCA as a cooperating agency, which is quite interesting because they did the same thing with the National Catholic War Council and a group that the Protestants put together and a group that the Jews put together, and they were all supposed to be cooperating agencies. And so they were given special powers. Anyways, eventually it got changed. 1953, civilian aids became part of the Office of Secretary of the Army. And so they went from being called the Military Training Camps Association to what we have today, which are the civilian aids to the Secretary of the Army. And they're business and community leaders appointed by the Secretary to advise and support Army leaders in each state and the District of Columbia and the 5 U.S. territories. Right? This proclamation was the 28th of November, 2022. So just a little bit about, what we can find on them. And so based on this, then I decided, well, I'm going to contact one. And so I wrote them something, and I want to share that with you. Hopefully we can find a civilian aid that will help us do what needs to be done. So who are they? Civilian aids to the Secretary of the Army, CASA, are business community leaders appointed by the Secretary to advise, support Army leaders across the country. They're special government employees who agree to serve as representatives of the Secretary of the Army without salary, wages, or related benefits, and are afforded a 3-star protocol status. We need to think about that for just a second, because if they're representing the Secretary of the Army, then they are the Secretary of the Army wherever they are. Just like an attorney represents you, CASA represents the Secretary. And apparently they have their own seal or their own mark or whatever you want to call it, but the Secretary of the Army is civilian aid. And they're afforded a 3-star protocol. So they're, equivalent to a 3-star general. They may not know it, ever use that power, but I'm saying, brother, you're a 3-star general. Everybody 2-star below better be saluting the flag and you. So, you should be able to get people to do things that I can't get them to do. CASA bridged the gap between the Army and civilian community by disseminating information about the Army's objectives and major programs to the public through speeches, personal contact, and participation in Army and community events. CASA assists in recruiting by increasing the positive image of the Army and connecting Army recruiters to key influencers in the community. Okay, CASA provided individual advice to the Secretary of the Army on public sentiments toward the Army. CASA worked closely with the Army leaders. Installation commanders serve as the Secretary's liaison of the Army National Guard, Army Reserve matters. They also engage in local, regional, state officials, federal agencies, members of Congress, and their staffs. So, one of these civilian aides should be able to tell the judge that doesn't have his oath of office that, Judge, you don't have this oath of office required by the 6th article of the Constitution. I'm afraid you're not a judge. Well, that would be a handy thing to have in our back pocket. How the program works, the Secretary of the Army appoints CASA to an initial 2-year term, may reappoint 5, where they serve. Appoints at least one individual in each state, yada, yada, yada. How the program evolved, well, just before World War I, the Military Training Camps Association, a private group, became a training program to train leaders of the Army. In helping the Army select and train the candidates for what was to become known as the Plattsburgh camps, the MTCA suggested that an intergroup of civilian aides to the Secretary of War could benefit both the Army and the association. In 1922, the Army formally recognized the training program and the civilian aide concept. Interaction with the Army was broad, with specific duties left to each aide's own discretion. Then, as now, aides serve without pay or compensation. So, the aide can do as much as the aide wants to do. So we just need to get them to want to do something. Let's see, to serve as civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, the appointee, well, they got to be a U.S. United States citizen, deep interest in military affairs, leader in community affairs, yada, yada, yada. Basically just be a halfway decent person with some contacts. Okay. And then let's see, some typical duties. CASAs, right, civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, are often asked to attend official events, such as swearing-in ceremonies. Well, there you go. How about you go, sir, and watch them judges get sworn in. Make sure they're taking the proper oath of office. And I'm going to show you all that stuff eventually, but we're working our way towards it. Often state governments and local municipalities will extend invitations to events. And official functions are a great time to meet Army leaders or the soldiers themselves, as well as local community and business leaders, while representing the Secretary of the Army. Right? They are the Secretary of the Army wherever they are. And here's some things they do. And one is soldiers and families may reach out to you for assistance on specific issues, such as a concern about a new Army policy or withholding my retirement pay or not fixing the damn records or whatever else that you want to complain to them about that the Army would have something to do with. Support Army recruiting, how you get nominated. You can attend a national security seminar. Well, they could, give them an earful. Installation activities, National Guard, Army casualties, yada, yada, yada. So, it's not nothing. It's certainly something. So, if you Google civilian aides to Secretary of the Army, you'll find that, by God, they got a website. And if we go and take a look-see, civilian aides, Secretary of the Army, just like they said. Right, introduction, well, we've already read most of this stuff. 100 years. Right, support soldiers for life. Well, there you go. They've already said that if you're a soldier for life. And if you're still in the military and you serve for 20 years, you're due a pension at the age of 60. Right? So CASA supports soldiers and families as they transition out of uniform by partnering with Soldier for Life program. This includes taking care of soldiers' families, assisting job opportunities for transition soldiers, veterans, and their spouses. But you're a soldier for life. If you're a soldier for life, you're still in the military. And I can look at my DD Form 4, the agreement I have with the military, and it says in there they could retain me as long as they want to. So in my official records, there is no discharge order. My records are basically blank. There's all sorts of shit missing. And it's the same, most DD 214 say that you were released to the reserves. None of them say you were, discharged from the custody and control of the military, which is the order that it would require for you to be released from the custody and control of the military. And until you have that, you're still in the military. So how about find a CASA? Let's look at that. Find a CASA. So here's every state. Right? And they got names, and you click on these. They go to email addresses, and voila, you could be contacting a CASA. And I don't think it matters if you're in the Army or not. This is, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's what we're talking about. So, anyways, there was mine. Now, I did see some of these states didn't have anybody listed. So, nevertheless, that's where they are. And then, hang on just a second. What's going on here? There we go. Let me see. Yeah, that's what I wanted to find. They have a Facebook page for civilian aides and Secretary of the Army, and they have an email address here. So if you can't find somebody to talk to, well, you can always email directly to the aide, because this is an office in the Secretary of the Army's office, right? This is part of the Secretary of the Army's office, this civilian aid program. Just to show that, they pick anybody to do this. Sam from Lord of the Rings, he's a CASA. So you can imagine, right? Sam is an actor. If you told Sam, well, act like you're the Secretary of the Army, Sam could do it. Actually, it's Sean Patrick Austin, or Aston. All right, he's a professional actor. Come on, Sam, act like you're the Secretary of the Army, start barking some orders, and save the Republic. And, so there you go. Civilian aides, the Secretary of the Army. So since I found this, right, and I found that, well, you go to their U.S. Army website and go under sections here and find a CASA, and they give you an email address. You might as well write one of them and, inform them of some things. And so I did, and that's what I'm going to tell you about now. So Jason Allen, he was one of mine here in Michigan. All right, civilian aide, Secretary of the Army, need to defend the Constitution of the United States. Mr. Allen, if the Army's website is correct and you are a civilian aide and Secretary of the Army, it would be a huge benefit to God, country, and soldiers for life if you exercise the power and authority of this unique office for the common good of the United States and its veterans. It's no exaggeration to say that only the Armed Forces of the United States can restore our republic, and your office may provide the grease for the skids to get the restoration machinery moving. Please bear with me and allow me one paragraph introduction. Sir, if the Corps of Engineers had special forces, I was one of as a member of an MOS with only 125 troops, 135 GT score, Q clearance from Department of Energy, granted unescorted access to places like Nowhere, Nevada, underground facilities to test, install, operate, maintain one-of-a-kind equipment and systems. As an example, my predecessors built Camp Century inside a Greenland glacier where they operated its nuclear power plant and other facility systems. Eventually ended up at Davis-Besse Nuclear Power Station, responsible for its instrumentation and control system. That would be the brain. One of the most complex systems of its kind in the world. Countless hours of specialized training and practical experience impressed on me the need to do things by the book, as it doesn't take long for crap to hit the fan when corners are cut, putting the public at risk. The same can be said when referring to the Constitution of the United States, United States statutes at large, United States Code, Michigan compiled laws, and DoD military regulations. Allowing unauthorized deviation from these fundamental truths has resulted in our Republican form of government being overrun by an unconstitutional democracy. For years now, I have investigated the blatant disregard of the Constitution and laws of the United States by esquires, politicians, and professionals. Allow me to share a few examples. Number one, charging military service members by the indictment of a grand jury is unconstitutional. It's a violation of the Fifth Amendment to charge a service member by the indictment of a grand jury. Yet this is exactly what happened as an aftermath of January 6, 2021 in the District of Columbia. These individuals must be charged under Article 30 of the UCMJ if they are alleged to have committed a crime. The Supreme Court has ruled that civilian justice system does not apply to service members. Number two, avoiding a loyalty oath offends the law of nations and the Constitution of the United States. The first law of the first Congress would be an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths, 1 Stat 23, and 4 U.S.C. 101, oaths by members of legislatures and officers, require state legislators, executive, and judicial officers to take an oath in the following form, to wit, I state your name, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States. But this mandatory requirement is avoided. Alleged members of Congress and judicial and executive officers of the United States also fail to follow the law and execute this oath. As a result, no class of officer identified in the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States has executed the oath required to satisfy this article. No judge, no justice, prosecutor, etc. has executed this mandatory oath and therefore has no authority to enforce any law. The United States and several states do not have a constitutionally empowered government. Instead, we have been infiltrated by spies and saboteurs who seek to destroy our Republican form of government. Number three, Congress uses a different constitution than the military. Can you believe it? The first sentence of the second article in the Constitution of Congress states, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America, while the Constitution in the Manual for Court Martials 2019 states, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States. Be advised that an oath of enlistment references the President of the United States, not United States of America. It's worth noting that the oath in the second article is not exact form of oath the President swears at the inauguration, making the oath recited by the Chief Justice unconstitutional. Because they add the name of the President and they put "so help me God" at the end of the oath, which is no longer the form of the oath that's in the Constitution. Number four, Michigan Secretary of State's in violation of Michigan election law and the 14th Amendment. Section 496 in Chapter 23, Registration of Electors of Act 116 of 1954, that'd be your Michigan election law, the same being the Michigan compiled law MCL 496, states, it shall be the duty of the Secretary of State to make proper forms for use in the registration of electors. And Section 499 states, any elector entitled to registration in an election precinct may become registered in the precinct by applying in person and signing the registration application before the clerk or assistant clerk of the township, city, or village in which the precinct is located. For the purpose of his or her duties under this act, the clerk or assistant clerk has the power to administer oaths and swear persons to the truths of statements contained in the application. In other words, it's impossible to register as a qualified elector, that'd be a citizen of Michigan, unless an individual appears before the election precinct clerk and swears under oath to the statements on the elector application that the Secretary of State is bound to provide, but has not. As a result of the Secretary of State's failure to do her duty, citizens of the United States residing in Michigan are disenfranchised of their citizen of Michigan elector status and constitutional protections. Chapter 23, Registration Elections, clearly shows registration as an elector is a completely different process than registering as a voter. Unless you register as an elector, you are not a citizen of the state. Therefore, you're not a 14th Amendment citizen. And your vote does not count in elections. Instead, it only counted in a popularity contest, commonly called a popular vote. According to MCL 168-941, peace officers, the duty to institute proceedings of the Michigan election law, the police have a duty to arrest the Secretary of State for her election crimes. You know, I don't know how many times since I've been doing this, I've been told by people that they don't want to be a 14th Amendment citizen. I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. Blah, blah, blah. You're correct. You are not a 14th Amendment citizen. And that's your problem. That's my problem. Because if we're not a 14th Amendment citizen, we're really not protected by the Constitution. Because it says in Section 1 that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. Okay, well, you have to be a citizen of both the United States and a citizen of your state. And they keep you from becoming a citizen of your state because they will not allow you to register as an elector. They'll allow you to vote, right, in the popularity contest, but they don't do this section here, which is give you a form made by the Secretary of State that you're supposed to take to your election office and swear to the statements that are on them. You know, you go talk to the people of the township or the county, they look at, you know, deer in the headlights look. No idea what you're talking about. You want to register to vote, right? No, I want to register as an elector, like it says right here. You can show them the law. They don't have any answer. They're fucking lost. So, you know, we really need to be registered as a qualified elector of the place that we reside in the state. So my place is Oakfield Township, right? It's not my house. The place that you're registered in is a place is like a city or a township or, you know, whatever the local government is. And they don't allow us to do that. Okay, number 5. A soldier for life is entitled to retirement pension at the age of 60. It's a misconception, lie, that a DD-214 is proof of termination of enlistment. The truth is that anyone that enlisted is a soldier for life, or its equivalent, if you're a different branch, and is still under the custody and control of their branch. Unfortunately, the administrative state ensures errors and omissions exist in records, so we are treated as missing or one of the other duty status codes in AR 600-6-8 and drop from the rolls or drop from strength. Every soldier has an Army military human resource record containing records not sent to the National Archives as part of the Michigan official military file. But Human Resource Command refuses to make mine available. Prima facie evidence of status is available from the Secretary of our branch in the form of a certificate of service under the signature of the Secretary, as fully described in the United States Code at 50 U.S.C. 4012. Soldiers must apply for this certificate, but no instructions are provided, and thus far no one has been willing to act as a cooperating agent. I ask your help in attaining my AMHRR and certificate of service from the Secretary of the Army, and then cut the red tape so I can collect my retirement pay. Sir, there is over $1.3 trillion of paid retirement pay sitting in the Military Retirement Fund because of intentional administrative errors in records. You, I, and every other enlistee eventually get paid retirement pay, and it goes in this fund instead of being dispersed to us. Fund managers enrich themselves by investing this paid but uncollected retirement pay. It's time we got ours. You and I and every other enlistee are owed this pension. And I know that this gentleman was a enlistee because I looked it up. Number 6, the American Legion is in violation of its congressional charter. He's also a member of the American Legion, as it turns out. The first purpose mentioned in the American Legion Charter is to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, for which it was given the power to sue and be sued, and to do any other act necessary and proper to carry out the purposes of the corporation. Catastrophically, the American Legion has not complied with 21707 Service of Process of its charter, and therefore the American Legion cannot exercise any power or privilege granted by the chapter. The name and address of an agent of the state in that state on whom legal process or demands against the corporation may be served has not been recorded, which is what 21707 says to do. But they got to register a name and address of an agent in the state on whom legal process or demands against the corporation may be served. It has not been recorded. Its Constitution states the national headquarters of the American Legion shall be located in the city of Indianapolis, Indiana, or a surrounding community, but no agent is identified in the Indiana Secretary or with the Indiana Secretary of State. The same is true for Michigan and other state departments of the American Legion. The American Legion should be front and center in defending our Republican form of government and sue Court Marshal Gretchen Esther Whitmer and other governors for failing to execute the oath in 4 U.S.C. 101, as we looked at earlier, to satisfy the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States, and fraudulent appointment as Commander-in-Chief of the State Militia, National Guard. Because if you ain't the governor, you ain't the Commander-in-Chief. And if you didn't take the oath, you're not the governor. This isn't that fucking difficult, people. Right? It's cutting corners that allow this shit to happen. The same for all alleged members of Congress, state legislatures, and executive judicial officers of the United States and several states who refuse to execute the oath in 1 Stat 23, 4 U.S.C. 101. The American Legion should be a primary defender of a Republican form of government, but instead it's as useless as tits on a boar because its leadership will not follow instructions. Other patriotic associations with congressional charter have the same defects. You could fix this snafu with a phone call. Situation normal, all fucked up. Snafu, by the way. 7. The United States has been under martial law since 1862. By his General Orders 141, President Lincoln, as Commander-in-Chief, proclaimed martial law throughout the United States, and this proclamation has never been modified or revoked. As a result, President Lincoln's General Orders 101, the Lieber Code, is still the military law governing the United States. According to the Lieber Code, all current civilian governments in the United States are provisional and answerable to the occupying armed forces of the United States. Proof of occupation is the gold fringed flags displayed in all local, state, and national government offices. AR 840-10 mandates this style of flag can only be displayed indoors in offices under military control. The Army does not need permission to enforce the laws of the United States. What it needs to do is do it as its duty to the Constitution of the United States. And number 8, tax collectors do not have an employee identification number or employer identification number, an EIN. Local tax collectors require any check to be made payable to blank county treasurer, such as Kalkaska County, Kent County, Ionia County. Pick your county. However, this individual cannot provide the payee, that'd be you, an executed request for taxpayer identification number and certification, the W-9 form. You can say, I want you to fill this out because, if you're going to pay somebody more than $600, they're supposed to provide you their EIN number. They're supposed to do it on this W-9 form. But they ain't got one because they won't give it to you. National, state, and local governments must have an EIN. And the fact that blank county treasurer does not have an EIN proves this entity is not the government. A review of the county comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR, will prove that collected taxes are invested in originating fund managers instead of used for government purposes. CASA, Jason Allen, you could do what needs to be done to change the course of the United States if you exercise the power and authority you have as a cooperating agent of the United States, and I pray to Lord God Almighty that you do. The armed forces of the United States have a duty to enforce the laws of the United States and provide a Republican form of government guaranteed in the 4th Article of the Constitution of the United States. This martial law government could use the American Legion and other patriotic associations as points of contact for the local populace to petition the government for redress of grievances. We, the enlistees, have your back. Please get busy. Don't let any esquire or politician bullshit you. Civilian government under the Constitution of the United States is suspended, and the Secretary of the Army has the authority to use the Army to enforce the supreme law of the land in the United States under the Labor Code. As for myself, I answer any question you have and fill in the blanks with by the book, facts, law, and regulation. When you appear ready to do your duty to God and country, and contact me. Respectively submitted, Staff Sergeant Lusky Robert Allen. Because you know what, that's how they have your name in your DD4, right? Where it says name, they have last name, first name, no comma in between, no commas anywhere. Lusky Robert Allen. That's the name on my DD Form 4, or any other enlistee's DD Form 4. And so that's the name that you have a contract with the military, which is still valid. We're still in the military. Nothing's changed. Here we are. Okay, hang on a second. So in case there's a CASA watching, I wanted to show you this Army Regulation 600-8-6, Personal Accounting and Strength Reporting. So give me a second to scan or get down to the right page. Hang on a second. So just a few things here. PASR, which is Personnel Accounting Strength or something like that, concept, begins with identity validation and recruiting and correct capture of PASR data at point of commitment to the government. PASR requires engaged leaders at points of commitment to the government, onboarding, transition, separation, overseas, internal controls, validate, capture resource, inspect, comply, protect, transmit, receive, and required PASR and identity data. So in other words, if somebody makes a mistake in the data, there's an error in the records. Data accuracy is achieved when required data is resident in the system of records and it's correct and is correct. Correct data is achieved when the data in the system of records matches the data of the authoritative document in the Army Military Human Resource Record, the AMHRR. This is why we, every branch got their version of this, but this is the record that has everything about you, not just what's in the personnel file that they send to the National Archives. This has got your pay and everything else in there. All right, data must be reconciled to ensure consistency between PA enabling system and other command databases at all levels. The Army does not recognize ad hoc systems or locally created databases as authoritative sources. The Electronic Military Personnel Office is the only approved system to account for all regular Army and Reserve component mobilized soldiers on active duty tour for 30 days or more within the Army. 100% PA must be maintained in all PA enabling systems during peacetime military operations. That sounds pretty important. Standards of service. Soldiers' accountability is responsibility of commanders at all echelons during peacetime mobilization, combat, and other types of deployments. Commander and staffs will ensure 100% PA of all personnel for the duration of their military service. Unit commanders will account for their assigned and attached personnel by verifying their full name, Department of Defense Common Access Card, personal identity, and or full Social Security number. All right, that's how you tell who you are. It's by your social security number and your full name, which, full name has got a particular meaning. There's no initials in your full name. Things of that nature. And yet you'll find records got, with your name with a middle initial, your name backwards, your name with a comma between your last name and your first name. And there must be 7, 8, 9, 10 different ways that they do it. Right? So the only consistent thing then would be your social security number. Unit commanders will account for soldiers from their initial arrival date or specified reporting date in orders to on order date to new gaining command, absent without leave, date drop from rolls, that's your DFR, date drop from strength, that's your DFS, date of separation, or death date. Proper accountability at all times is essential to facilitate accurate per stat reporting. Commanders at every level must maintain 100% accountability. Well, they're not doing it. Regular Army Strength Accountability Reporting. Soldiers' access into eMilPro will be reported in eMilPro beginning on the actual date of their activity or active duty orders are executed or upon returning to strength military command. So for myself, right, I've tried to go to this eMilPro, which is online. It's on the Human Resource Command's website. I do everything to get into it, and it says there's nothing in there for me. I got a fucking blank record. And I can't get anybody there to do anything about it. If you're listening, CASA. And so this is really what happened to me. Accountability for soldiers, right? Unit commanders account for soldiers during being assigned to a transition center for transition processing, separation, transfer, discharge, retirement, release from active duty, until the reporting date specified in transition orders. For soldiers who will transition from regular Army at their current duty station, the reporting date and the reassignment orders assigned to them to the transition center must be the date the soldier will transition from the regular Army, which would mean, your ETS date. And my order sending me to the transition point doesn't have my ETS date on there. So, it's wrong. Transition center personnel account for soldiers from actual report date reflected in reassignment orders until the day or date transfer, separation, discharge, retirement from the regular Army. So I went into the transition center under orders and I never came out. I'm stuck in transition somewhere. Okay, and then finally they have this section talking about duty status codes. And as we'll see, when you're on active duty, there's all these subcategories that fall under active duty. Right? So, you don't have to have been released from the military to have something other than ready to go to war status and in active duty. And there's supposed to be these reconciliation DA 647 and 647-1 forms, which, there's nothing like this in my personnel record. The one that I wanted to show was, here we go. All right, these are duty status codes. All these are for people that are active duty. Right, you got administrative absence, absent without leave, confined by civil authorities, right, AWC, and then absent without leave, AWL, captured, confined in the hands of civil authorities, convalescent leave, confined in the hands of military authorities, couple for hospital, interned, missing in action, missing, right? Soldiers whose whereabouts and status are unknown, provided the absence appears to be involuntary. The type of casualty code can either be hostile or non-hostile. Right? Got ordinary leave, present for duty, sentence for 30 days, sentence for military authorities, sick, not in the line of duty, temporary duty, depart for transit failure to gain. Departed in transit, failure to gain. I would say that's probably what happened to me. Excessive leave. All those are categories that you could have. And now, let me see here. Just one last thing. Accounting for personnel. Regular Army soldiers assigned a modified table of organizations and equipment, MTO&E, or tables of distribution and allowances, TDA units, will be counted as part of the active duty operation and strength account. Regular Army soldiers not assigned to an MTOE or TDA units will be counted as part of the active duty and strength, but not as part of the regular Army's operating strength. These soldiers will be accounted for separately in individual accounts. These accounts include trainees, transients, holds, for example, patients, prisoners, separatees, students, USMA candidates. So, right, it's very easy to get thrown into this individual account that has nothing to do with the overall numbers of the military or the numbers that are reported for strength. And, you get forgotten. You got trainees, transients, include soldiers not available for duty while en route to a new permanent duty station. Transit time includes PCS travel time, TDY en route, leave en route. The transit time does not include TDY training en route or new permanent duty station travel associated with unit move, yada, yada, yada. So, if you left to go on TDY and didn't appear someplace, well, you're stuck in transit someplace. And you got holdees, patients, separatees, soldiers assigned to a transition center awaiting transition from the Army. That would have been me. So finally, soldiers who are outside military control, whose date of RMC, return to military control, is uncertain, will not be counted as part of the active duty end strength. These soldiers fall into the following two accounting categories. This is where we be, folks. Either drop from the rolls, these soldiers are DFR and do not remain a member of the reporting unit, or drop from strength. These soldiers are dropped from accountability of the Army. However, they are DFS, drop for strength of the Army, for personnel strength accounting purposes. Exclusion from regular Army strength does not by itself affect status as a regular Army service member. DFS personnel may remain entitled to pay and benefits. Except for prisoners of war and missing personnel, they remain a member of their reporting unit until separated from the service or until they are reassigned by a higher authority. Well, that's what I need now. I need to be reassigned by a higher authority and gotten out of this freaking drop from strength situation and to return to military service so I can collect my retirement pay. It's really that simple. All right, so this is what, I need my CASA to do. Is if we could narrow it down, sir, AR 600 8-8-6, Section 4-1, accounting of personnel, D. All right, let's work on that. And every voluntary enlistee, when they reach the age of 60, would get their retirement pay if this shit was straightened out. And just one last thing, I just want to show you that retirement pay. I talked about it a bunch. You can find it online, right? They have this thing called the Military Retirement Fund Audited Financial Report. And just really quickly, the reporting unit is the Department of Defense Military Retirement Fund. The military retirement system provides benefits for military members' retirement from active duty and the reserves, disability retirement benefits, and survivor benefits. The MRF accumulates funds to finance on an actuarial basis the liabilities of DoD under military retirement and survivor benefit programs. Where did it say? During fiscal year 2018, the MFR received $18.4 billion normal cost payments, $89.7 billion payments from the U.S. Treasury, consisting of both amortization and concurrent receipt payment, and earned approximately $30.5 billion in investment income. So this is paid retirement. Right? It's not rainy day money for retirement in the future. This is to pay what's already been, what's already due. Well, why is there So as we go down here then, we will see, again, this is 2018, so it's quite a bit more than this now, but cheapers. There we go. All right, the fund balance. At this time, it was, okay, well, let's see, 2023, according to projected flow of planned assets, there'd be almost 1.4, right? And these are billions of dollars, in billions of dollars. So $1,395,000,000,000 in the account. And then you look at, well, they're going to spend $75 billion of that on payroll. Now, whose payroll is that? The people running the account? Or is that the pay for the retirement? And then another $30 billion in cost. So they're saying it costs $30 billion a year to run this system. Does that make any sense to you? $30 billion? Fund disbursement, 68.1. You know, who did get? If the payroll was here, then who got this? Who got this other fund? Right? So either the payroll is going to the people running the show, or it's the payroll for retirement pay. But then who's the fund disbursements going to? Right? Who's getting paid to run the show? This is big boondoggle money for somebody, which is why they want our retirement here so they can invest it, because they get paid to, manage the account. So, that's what we're up against. And that's why nobody wants to give us our retirement pay. And I'm hoping maybe that the civilian aides, the Secretary of the Army, will do that and take care of some of these other issues we have going on, because the United States is under martial law, has been since 1862. There's nothing anybody can do to change it. It's written in the, in the general orders of Lincoln, and until those were rescinded, they're still valid. So I'm not arguing with it. Try to use it for my advantage. Okie dokie. Let's call that a wrap, and that's what I can tell you today. If I hear something, I'll let you know soon. But for yourselves, I guess, if you're still listening, you're still here, right? Contact one of your people, from any of these states. I don't care what branch you're in. I don't care if you're in the military. Contact them and say, dude, you got to watch this guy's video. Or you got to contact Rob Ryder. Right? We got problems. You have the answers. Right? We just need to tell you what the problem is so you can use some of that power you have as a 3-star general. Very good. You all have a great day, and hey, enjoy the solar eclipse if you can see it. See you now.